oh, well, I guess outside's fucked and maybe it'll be fucked forever. So at least
Yeah.
we'll all be together in the metaverse. It's like, oh, whoa, no, thank you. What
So
the?
when you do that, people don't realize like what would be the point of that. I'm like, when you do that, you live by their terms and conditions. They don't have to get rid of the Constitution. They don't even have to change the laws because once you're operating on that and you're addicted to living in that, you get everything you want instantly. You will have no need for rights because your rights will cease to exist because you're no longer what we can consider a human being. You're just some fucking program entity. You're a NPC that you created yourself and injected yourself into the program.
You're listening to the Art and More podcast with your hosts, Nathan and BR. Nathan is a Canadian illustrator with a couple years of military experience, and BR is a British anarchist that moved to the States. Both are passionate shooters and community builders. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
Okay, welcome back to the On War podcast. I'm your host, BR, joined by fucking none of my co-hosts. Everyone, stuck me up today. Phil is allegedly in Ohio, which doesn't exist, so that's a lie, so I'm bummed about that. He was meant to be on this one. He was on his way back. He might show up at some point, who knows. And then Nathan's off-grid in the woods, so hooray for him, I'm jealous. But I am fortunate, because I have the good fortune of being joined by a special guest, Icepick Jay, for part 2.
What's up, guys? I'm back.
Yeah, I'm back, guys.
I'm back, man.
So,
man.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, man.
Just joining me, motherfuckers. So last time we did the whole origin story. We did a deep dive. People loved it, and people were all like, "Hey, get Jay back for part 2. Where's part 2?"
It blew my mind that it had a good response. I mean, I don't know. You know the whole imposter syndrome thing. Like a lot of people have
constantly.
it. I think everybody to some extent has it. You go out there, you're like, I'm gonna put myself out there, and as soon as you do, you're like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have. I should have said this way or this that way, and it's like an ongoing battle. And I think it's like very heavy, especially with like I don't know young men, especially in this industry, because like people are either gonna be way too pompous, they can't smell their own shit, or they're gonna think everything is shit and they're not gonna do anything. That's kind of me in the second camp there. I'm like really like on edge to put myself out there. I do it anyway, right? Because like, financial reasons, opportunities in general, like we all like money, right? So, but the big thing is I think there's like a big struggle, and I think it's good to have that struggle where some people are like, oh man, it keeps you grounded. You're like, man, is this like going to come off like, like kind of an asshole thing to do. Like, and sometimes you need to be an asshole, right? But I'm talking about yourself. You don't want to be cocky. You don't want to be arrogant. Pride comes before a fall, all that stuff. So yeah, I'm very happy that you guys are having me back on. The real reason Phil and Nathan aren't there is because they hate me, but it's okay.
Damn it, who knows? Fuck.
Damn it. I'll go out to the woods myself. No. But we had a really crazy past couple of weeks, man. Just like in general, I guess we can just like jump into it. Like we were briefly talking before we came on. I think you said what did you say? The dark side of gun culture. What was it?
So, like what we kind of touched on a little bit last time was, well, I'll step back a little bit. So, like when we talk about gun culture in this country, or at least in this community, like we always have this like squeaky clean light to shine on it, and you see it when you go to like a trade show. Like you see the best foot forward of the gun industry, or at least our collective attempt at it. Everything's like all gun safety classes and responsible gun owners and like our Second Amendment rights, but we never really talk about what that's actually for. Like it's for
tickling
people that fuck with you. That's
essentially. Who are the red coats? I'm not gonna say it, out loud, but what are the red coats?
We're shaking their hand and putting thin blue line stickers in their hand. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, ironically, I'm wearing my Chris Dorner shirt right now, and you guys can't see it. You'll hear it in the recording. And I'm not advocating that you go out and do anything crazy. We've had enough of that in the last couple of weeks alone. God forbid, we'll talk about that stuff later.
if you do something cool enough, you might end up on a t-shirt.
You might end up on a t-shirt, yeah. See, the thing about Dorner, like, we can jump into that. I by no means think he's like, a national hero. He was a guy that got fed up with the system, which he was very much a part of. And he felt like he was discredited as not only an officer, but as a black man. And he decided to take revenge. Whether you believe that's right or wrong, that's kind of like on your own moral compass. But, he did show that you can chip away and do some damage. I don't really know. I don't even know if there's a body count besides the people who got killed by the police because they thought they were Chris Dorner. I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't know.
Surprisingly low.
Yeah. So let's say you can whip people up in a frenzy. That's what we'll say about the guy. I think this shirt's really funny. It says in loving memory of Chris Dorner, and then it has a quote on it that says, Hillary Clinton, you'll make a great president, or you'll make one hell of a president in 2016. I don't think he actually said that, but it's really funny. I have another Dorner shirt that was made by my homies over at that Loser's Luck, and it says R.I.P. LL Cool J on it. So it's one of those. It's one of those in memoriam shirts that you see. Kids wearing with spray paint on it and shit. So it's pretty funny.
Dude, I love all of the in memoriam accounts, or like anytime you can trick boomers into liking like a RIP hero post about Dorner is a win. And it's
I mean, I've actually had people stop me and go, oh, is that a veteran? Or because he's wearing like camo in the shirt or whatever. And I'm like, well, technically, yeah, he is, So yeah. But like getting back to your point, talking about the dark side of gun culture. I mean, we've seen it the notoriety really began, in my opinion, with Columbine. It started with these kids that were, the epitome of like what we have now, like incel kids that were, they weren't online really because, the internet wasn't really a thing. I think it was 97. Yeah. That's only when it was mainly a weapon created by DARPA. That's a different conversation there. But we had these kids that were, being bullied and picked on, and whether they deserved it or not is, for anybody who was there, they'd be able to tell you a little bit better than we would, but there's fucking fan clubs for the Columbine shooters, like Eric Harrison, Dylan Klebold. You see, somebody that I had dated once had Natural Selection and Wrath tattooed on her feet, and like because she was like a what we call Columbine kid. You know what I mean? So,
fuck, man.
that's pretty dark. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but like circulating like 4chan for a while, there was a girl that had the silhouettes of them in the lunchroom holding the Tech 9 tattooed on her side. And, so there's like some real freaks that, base their identity around it. And it was mainly like on like, the underground stuff, 4chan, 8chan, things like that. But we've seen it kind of eke into life. Like, I'm a big fan of industrial music, and KMFDM was like a big part of my childhood, and same with these shooters. They were KMFDM, Marilyn Manson, I think Rammstein were blamed for the shooting, which, I mean, you can show a kid anything and they can make it about what they want, right? So you can't necessarily look and be like, hey, KMFDM is the cause of this shooting. They blame video games as well when it happens. So I would say a lot of this like dark culture at least became more popular, I'll say, in the U.S. with Columbine. And then, fast forward, you got, the DC snipers. We had a clock tower shooting. People are going to Google this shit. I'm going to be way off. Maybe in the 80s. I don't know when that was, but that was like a fluke. It was something that never happened. But like the rise of mass shooting, especially amongst like younger people, teenagers even, I feel like that was kind of set off by Columbine. And like you talk to some of these boomers and stuff, and they'll tell you they used to bring their fucking shotguns to school and hang them in the back window of their truck, or they bring it in for show and tell after Christmas.
I wish we still had that culture.
Me too.
Like that's in my mind. If I lived in the society I wanted to as a young country bumpkin, like I grew up shooting. Yeah. In my mind, like without any of that existing, it would be perfectly fine to just have a rifle rack in the rear of my fucking truck and like park it up for the day.
They used to have shooting classes, dude, like in the school. You know what I mean? Like I fail to see where that would be a bad thing in most. Now, I mean, granted, you've seen videos of kids in Chicago pulling out their Glocks with a switch on it in gym. Um, that is a totally different thing. So when we get into like more modernized culture with it, we have plenty of gang activity and things like that that are now in schools and school age children, I'll say, because a lot of them don't stay in school. You know, you see kids out of O Block or wherever, and they're banging all these sets, and they're like 12, 13, 14 years old. And it's been like that now for, I want to say, in places like Oakland and stuff, sure, when they like, 30, 40 years now. But
Yeah, this dude's
we're
out
seeing it pop.
doing that shit.
Yeah, well, now we're seeing it popularized with, these things. You can't see me, but cell phones and like, Snapchat or TikTok or whatever. I don't know, whatever the kids like broadcast on. Not only do they dry snitch, but they'll kill somebody over very small stuff. And when an example, I think I touched on this on our last episode talking about my background, but some of the armed security stuff, I would see kids, 12, 13-year-old kids, like shooting each other, and walking around with guns and wads of cash and fucking smoking blunts. And it's one of those things where America's got a rotten, we have like the idea of America, right? This magical idea for a general American or like an immigrant, right? Like somebody like you that emigrated here. The idea of America is gold, right? It's a golden age. But then when you get into the core of it, there's a lot of rotten. It's like having a nice house with nice wood floors, and then underneath it's all rotted, right? It's dry rot. And, people can blame it on socioeconomic factors. And I'm not saying that's not definitely a part of it, but we have all kinds of systematic issues, not just with race either, but across the board, we just have all sorts of systemic problems that we've kind of really failed to address. One of the biggest ones is education. Obviously, it's pretty bad. Public schools, in my opinion, in my experience, public schools they're just trying to shovel kids in and shovel them out, and the kids don't have parents. So these teachers who are making fucking $40,000 a year, which is insulting, frankly, got to deal with these kids that are not only rambunctious, but they're like putting hands on these teachers and posting these teachers on their social media and doing drugs in class and fighting and just all kinds of shit, man. And it's not going to get any better. And there's no like clear cut answer, right? People can speculate, look at stats and there's a lot of stuff that you can call out, but when it comes down to it, there's one of the biggest ways to address this, in my opinion, again, is rebuilding the family unit. Some people would disagree with that, but I know people, they always say like in jail, right? Mother's Day comes around, everyone fucking writing Mother's Day cards. Everybody has cards going out. Father's Day, nobody's got shit going out. And I'm not saying a mom can't be a strong, there's people who are single mothers that are good parents that do the best they can as a single mother. But, not to discredit that, I got to say that now because, some people are, what about this or what about that? I try to fucking, but having a good father goes a long way, and like, I mean, we've all seen it, kids that kind of like just run the street on their mom. Their mom's like, oh yeah, my damn kids. I don't even know where they're at. They haven't been home in 3 days.
They're alive, which is doing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
They're an asshole, and it's like, yeah, they're alive for now.
Yeah, man. And most moms are soft. I mean, depends on what kind of mom you got. I guess like there's moms I've seen in the hood. I would not want to make her upset. I mean, I've been grounded by my friend's mom. I grew up. One of my friends growing up, his name was Terrence, and his family they're really tight knit. Terrence is black. Most of my friends in Baltimore when I was a kid were black, just because I was one of the only white kids in my class. So, but his family was very tight knit. His dad was in the Navy, very strict, but he was always gone. So his mom had to lay down the law all the time. And I can't tell you how many times I would she went to bed and we snuck out and played Tekken in the living room or something. She'd come out with a Switch, start screaming at us and shit like that. And it's like, yo, dude, so I guess just going back, there could be disciplinarian parents and it not work either. Like my parents were more so my father was a disciplinarian, and I think it saved me some heartache, but at the same time I turned out how I turned out. So it's not saying that it's a fix-all by any means, but I think there would be a drastic change in elements if there were more father figures in a lot of these kids' lives. Now, there's studies that show this to be true. People can argue semantics all they want with that. But then, going back to Columbine, part of what was blamed for Columbine was video games. And now more than ever, I mean, the military industrial complex slaps Call of Duty in everyone's hands. In my opinion, that's the reason why it's so popular. So they want people to want to be in the military, which I understand. I don't really play video games, but when I used to, I'd be like, "Fuck yeah, I want a Scar 17 because it's in whatever game." Rainbow Six Vegas.
Where I'm rocking that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, man.
What's up everyone, BR here with a quick message from our new sponsor, Cloud Defensive. We've been huge fans of Cloud Defensive lights for quite some time. If you've been with us from the start, you've probably heard us mention Chad Defensive a number of times. Personally, I own the full-size Rain models, 1.0, 2.0, and their all-new 3.0. Every rifle needs a sling, an optic, and a light, and Cloud Defensive is consistently my choice for rifle lights. Cloud Defensive lights' durability, brightness, and top-notch design features make them a no-brainer in my rifle setups every single time. Whether you need a rifle light like the Rain, an EDC option like the MCH or Chikra Admin, or are looking forward to the EPL for handguns coming this year in 2025, Cloud Defensive has you covered. We're excited to partner with them, and as a listener, you can get 10% off site-wide using the code ARTANDWAR10. That's ARTANDWAR10. Every purchase with our code directly supports the show. Check them out via the link in the show notes or through our Seaburn Art link tree in our bio. Thanks for listening, now let's get back to the show.
So yeah, maybe back in the day when you were playing, Neo or Grand Theft Auto 2 or whatever, it might have not rubbed off as much as, maybe now. There's always been an influx of like extreme games too. Like nowadays kids have like Grand Theft Auto 5, we're about to get 6 maybe before World War 3 maybe. But back in the day, remember Manhunt? You ever play Manhunt before? You just beat people to death with a spike bat. You know what I mean?
Postal and shit like that.
Yeah, Postal. That's a great example there. So so there's definitely, I feel like it's nature versus nurture. I'm not going to say kids that play a shit ton of violent video games and watch violent movies are going to be like less violent than a kid that's not exposed to any of that. I do believe that it can play a part, small, sure. I'm not saying if you play video games with guns in it, you're going to go out and you're going to fucking light up people. That's not what I'm saying. But people got to be really ignorant to think that like, oh, if I'm always watching, it's just like kids getting into porn really young. They're going to be sexually confused, and they're going to have like a twisted worldview on like women, for example. Kids that were like hypersexualized at like 13 years old because their friend was watching porn or they saw their dad's porn stash or whatever. Like I remember being in middle school and kids like finding old, Penthouse magazines and like everybody looking through it and shit. And it's like, when you see that as a young kid, it confuses you. It really warps your mind. And I think now with how society is in general, we are not only like hyper violent, but we're also hypersexualized.
We're hyper
everything, dude. Yeah, hyper everything, really. Yeah, because we want those dopamine. I need it now. And we do it with, everybody wants online validation that has it. People are like, I don't care about likes. Everyone, even subconsciously, maybe 1 out of 10,000 guys posts a picture of his fucking fishing reel. He gets no likes. He doesn't give a shit, right? That's the same guy that's going to comment on, ground news. And he's like, Trump, like whatever the fuck. Maybe that one guy doesn't give a shit, right? But he wants to elicit reactions. And I think that's the whole validation thing. Everybody wants some sort of validation. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not one to talk. I'm very active on social media. We know this. So I'm not going to say that, if you're on social media, you're a fucking dork. Like we all do it, right? It's not only a mode of communication to keep up with your friends, but it's also big for financial things. So, and that, you sell merch, you got the podcast, I do my merch stuff, modeling stuff, all that. So I think people have this, they're more and more self-aware every year. People get just more obtuse to their surroundings, and we're just hyper everything. Like you said, we want to fuck, we want to kill, we want to eat, we want to, like, I can order a sandwich, I can order a steak to my house and be here in 20 minutes right now. And like, we've never had access to this kind of stuff all throughout human history. So I think the violence will become exponentially larger as we get larger into everything else. There's a human appetite for violence. When it's like people who like the box. When I was a little kid, I used to get bullied a lot. My dad made me learn boxing from one of his friends, and then I got more and more into it. And like, always, and even now, like, I'm afraid that I don't want to get hit. Like, I'm like, oh, please don't hit me. Like, this is gonna suck. As soon as you get hit, there's like this thing in your brain. Not for everybody, but there's this thing in your brain where like, fuck yeah, let's go. It's the adrenaline turning on. It's your survival instincts. Not everybody has it, but most men, not all, but most men have survival instincts to some extent. So as soon as that switch is flipped, you're ready to go. And it's the same thing with unlocking all this other stuff, and everything in moderation, right? That's the term that we've all heard from our parents or our colleagues or whatever. And I think that's important to think. Not all violence is evil. Not all violence is like a mode of being. It's like it can be good or bad. There's good violence. You know what I mean? Like,
that's the entire foundation of this country. Like, if it wasn't
exactly
for an initiation of, like, at the time, literally terrorism against the powers that be, the established good guy powers, like, this country would never exist, and there would be just a continuation of, like, straight up British imperialism. I mean, we swapped it for American imperialism, but but
well, like, that's the whole empire thing, right? Beat the drum, dude. You got Rome, you got England, you got Constantinople, you got America. It's
we have the craziest empire. Like fuck. We have, like, the empire of excess, and like a lot of what you're hitting on, like with the start of this conversation, is like the micro issue, or obviously they're big issues, but the small scale, like single mother household kind of issues, shit like that. Like, when you look at the landscape to create those issues, like, okay, why do we have such an epidemic of single mothers, that kind of, basically a single mother generation? And it's like, well, the CIA was fucking around with crack in neighborhoods and finding any reason to imprison people, destroying households because they were worried about the civil rights movement becoming too powerful. And so you've got this whole, like, just to fucking start with, like, the reason we have such a destabilized culture is because the CIA, who are meant to be defending America, decided to trickle drugs into neighborhoods to destabilize Americans. And it's like, okay, that's like one fucking slither of the whole.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No. I'm just saying, you know why? It's because chaos is. So I have a tattoo on my hands, Ordo Ab Cal, and what that means is order through chaos, or order from chaos, and it's an ages old. It's a Masonic saying. I'm not a Freemason, but it's the same thing as above, so below. On my hands, I have these bolt cutters and this cut security camera, and it's the same thing. Like, I look at, I believe in order from chaos as well, especially like having anarchic beliefs similar to you. And the thing is that they're in power. So theirs are even going to be more steadfast in creating that. And what that is, they destabilize from within, because then people always need direction. They always need, it's the same thing with the Agenda 2030 or whatever, in 2030 you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. The reason they want that, whether it's localized to United States, Eastern Seaboard, whatever, is because when they tell you to jump, you got to say how high, or they're going to turn your water off. They're going to turn your power off. And the excess culture that we have now is to steep us and boil us until we're so accustomed to comfort that the fear of losing that can shut down an entire nation of uprising. So people now don't want to get off the couch and not be able to eat, fucking McDonald's or whatever, because they don't want a revolution because they're comfortable. And like, it works. I mean, shit, man, I don't want to I don't want to go fight a war if I don't have, you know what I mean? So the whole thing is like we're all guilty of it to an extent, some more than others, but they basically drugged us into compliance. And the drugs, some of it's actual drugs, alcohol, porn, just video games, movies. Like I'm a huge I'm a huge cinephile. I love movies, films, whatever, but the thing is like I'll watch like a 3-hour movie and I'll sit there and I'll contemplate, like, man, that movie was really good. It was like some movies I've seen like are like, mentally moving, and I'm like, oh wow. But then I stand up and I'm like, man, I just sat my ass on the couch for 3 fucking hours staring at a screen, a box on my wall. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's different than reading. It does engage your mind a little bit, but you're still droned out. Like, I've seen shirts and slogans, destroy your TV. I'm not strong enough to do that yet. I'm sorry. I love movies. I love sci-fi. I love, I was recently on a trip to see my parents in another state. And on my way back, I rewatched the first Alien, and my girlfriend was sitting in the thing next to me. She goes, didn't you just watch that movie like recently? And I was like, yeah. Why are you rewatching it? Well, it's a really good movie. Don't you know all the words by now? Like I have alien tattoos and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. But like every time I watch it, I pick apart. Like I'm a huge, like I like the art in it. H.R. Giger, whatever. His designs are really kind of like demonic and weird, but he's very interesting.
Like a one-off creative mind right there.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever I watch the movies, I try to pull the sub-lore behind it. Like there's a bunch of like underlying messaging and stuff in those movies, and I pick up on different stuff every time I watch it, even though I've seen the movie hundreds of times. So my point is like their film in general, like it can be thought-provoking, it can be groundbreaking, it could start conversations. But at the end of the day, you're sitting your ass down and you're watching TV. So it's the same thing with all the things that we enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying things at all. But a docile community is never going to get up and engage in activism or in paramilitary operations or, community policing or whatever, And if you sit back and relax, you're like, the cops got it. Well, they're already kind of taking that they're taking that away from you. I partially believe that when the Constitution was written, that a well-regulated militia means that it is your duty as a U.S. citizen to know how to not only use firearms but be proficient with them, as well as any other readily available skill that you could have to survive. So, cooking, farming, how to, have a green thumb, how to do medical assistance, like if you need it or your loved one needs it. I believe all those things are American attributes. I mean, they do it all over the world, right? But what I mean is whenever they wrote that to me, and everybody takes different things away from it, but I believe that means being as ready for a wartime scenario at any given time, because this is a fucking experiment, dude. Yep. The United States is an experiment. There's no other country under. People are like, oh, well, Switzerland has guns. There's no mass shootings. Completely different fucking thing. We were founded by guys that killed cops because they didn't want to pay like a 2% tax. We're taxed fucking 52% right now. So if things have changed, why don't we start by looking at that? The stripes, people have different opinions on this, but the red stripes on the flag are for blood. And there's blood that has been shed by many, many men to create this and to maintain it. But somewhere along the line, it became a narcissistic battle of control versus protecting a good idea. There's plenty of evil things that have happened in society in general, as a whole on this planet, plenty of good things that have turned evil. And so when people are like, well, the idea of America is good. Yes, there's plenty of things that have good intentions, but good intentions aren't worth shit if you do not push them all the way through. Oh, I mean, so we have to police it. Yeah.
I mean, no. What I really hate about modern day America, and people are gonna take that and run with it. America, especially to someone that grew up in Europe, like the concept is so wonderful. It's like exactly what a country of rebels should be. And then once you get here and or if you've lived here and kind of like understand the Whiskey Rebellion and America's history and what it turned into, you realize like the original ideals of the country are just being worn as like this awful like misfit skin suit. Like they didn't even do it gracefully. They just fucking tore it off the corpse, and Uncle Sam's parading around in this like fucked up like
Yeah.
America's imagining it's the constitutional republic it was in 1776, and
It's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre shit.
Yeah,
dude. Like
yeah,
him with the mask. You know,
Yep. It hasn't.
it's an ill-fitting suit.
Yeah, hasn't been that guy for a long, long time. But then,
Yeah.
like, it's the most sickening thing. So you get beaten over the head with it by, Republican, Democrat. Both of them like hit you over the head with their, their easy to grab words like, freedom and liberty and all that, and they throw that at you like, oh, don't you believe in democracy? And it's like, motherfucker, like none of this is what you're describing. You're using words to placate us, while like basically it's a completely different country to what could have been and what is. Well,
I don't know if we can get back to the true road. I honestly don't think.
I think the only way you can do it is like living by example. Like it's not gonna be the country decides to start being America again, because the country thinks it's being America right now, and like it is in name only. Like we can rename the Gulf of America and all the rest of it. It's
dumbest
like
shit I've ever heard, dude. It just doesn't sound right, man. It's just like
I thought it was fun, but like
really? What were they gonna name? But were they gonna name Greenland? What were they gonna name?
We were gonna take Greenland. It's like
but they were gonna rename it for some fucking stupid ass name. My big thing is, man, is like, look, like the last time America got together, we're like, unity was 9/11, but then we killed millions of Iraqi civilians right after. So like, if you think that they're not people and you're okay with that, that's what you think. That I disagree with that. But even when the most recent unification, we did something horrible immediately after. I have friends that fought in the Iraq War, friends that went to Afghanistan, Fallujah, and most of them regret. I mean, I don't think that every soldier who went was a bad guy at all. I believe there were some very heroic guys that went and believed in what they were fighting for at the time, and either lost their lives, lost limbs, lost friends. And I got a lot of respect for a lot of those guys, because I think all men on this planet, for the most part, have inside them a desire for conquest or combat, and I think it's only natural to seek out fighting for a virtuous cause. And when you're a young American man that grew up in the 90s, and like you were a teenager in the 90s, when a lot of the shit was hidden, we didn't have cell phones showcasing and shining light on everything. So you grow up in a suburban America in 1990s. You love your country. Why not? There's no reason to. You see Independence Day in theaters. You know what I mean? Like, fuck yeah, So, and then we get hit with a terrorist attack. So what do you want to do? You want to sign up and you want to kill the motherfuckers that killed your countrymen. And that is all American. That's as American as apple pie. But the thing is that there was no way for a lot of people to know what was really going on. And, there was like blips of tragedy, going back to Columbine, or the Oklahoma City bombing, a lot of kids died, and none of that is trivial, all of that's important. But for the most part, all of that stuff were random tragedies that we couldn't really control, and nobody really understood the origins of it. And we had things we could blame, like media or television and, books and whatever. So, we can blame Satanism for everything. That was a big thing. The Satanic Panic kind of bled into the 90s. And then you had a lot of music artists speaking out against, Marilyn Manson, 3 6 Mafia, things like that. But, when people signed up to go fight in, right after 9/11, there was nothing at the time, at least I don't believe there's anything wrong with that. It's just they didn't know what they were doing. Yep. I don't think anybody anticipated, I don't know the exact number, but I believe it's north of 1 million Iraqi civilians getting killed. I'm not Iraqi. I don't really know. I think I know one guy who is Iraqi. He's a nice guy. So to me, that might as well be something from 1920, right? But that is an American. That's what we call American exceptionalism, which is when we're like, it's not us, right? And being a Darwinist myself in a lot of ways, I get kind of apathetic, and I'm like, well, it's not my problem. But if I stop being an asshole and take a minute, and I'm like, all right, maybe that is a bad thing. A bunch of people died, innocent people that are just like you and me, in shittier circumstances. A lot of people in nice homes got fucked up on 9/11. A lot of people in shit homes that were already living in poverty got killed right after, so they had a shitty life and then a shitty death, so that goes back to us talking about like the age of excess. I think we've had it since probably the mid 70s, because the civil rights movement kind of died down. People started getting more rights. Harvey Milk and stuff paved the way for a lot of the gay community and things like that. So the late 70s, we had disco and all that shit hit. And then the 80s hit and we had cocaine and new wave and all that stuff. And then it really kind of took off. And we had like a golden age of America, which I wish I was around for more of, honestly, from like 1975 to 2000, was just party time, the golden age of Babylon. And when 9/11 hit, it was kind of like a reality check with our place on the world stage, and it was like, hey, do we go fight? I mean, who the fuck did this? And I mean, I was a little kid. I was in Baltimore City. I watched. They evacuated our school after we watched the planes hit. Of course, they brought us out of classrooms, rolled these TVs in the room, and we all watched the second plane or the second tower get hit. And they evacuated us. And, Baltimore is a really busy city, but like everybody was just like, it was like a ghost town, and there were like no planes in the sky. People were like leaving all their businesses because Baltimore is only a few hours south of New York. And then DC also got hit.
Yeah.
And DC is not very far from Baltimore at all. It's like 40 minutes. So nobody knew if we were going to get hit. One of my neighbors, my friend Patrick's his father was a banker. He got killed. So it was very strange. You're a little kid, you think your country's going to war, because we were. And now even then I say that war for us is some guy that knows a guy joined the military and went somewhere for a couple months, really, and then they emailed us. Yeah. War in Afghanistan is there's a bunch of dudes with weapons that are like from fucking outer space kicking your door in to use it as like a forwarding base. You know what I mean? So, or it's completely different for us. So even in war, we're comfortable for the most part. Now, I'm not saying when you're in the shit in, any country that, we've been in fighting, I'm not saying you're comfortable, but for the most part, we've done very well we're great with applications of violence. I think that's a human spirit of rebellion thing that we really embraced, during the Revolutionary War. Awesome. Yeah. We still have that fighting spirit. It's just, we're so apathetic that it's like used for fucking, I've seen dudes beat each other to death over opposing sports jerseys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So America's not the only country that does that. We all know that, right? You know, you can watch plenty of
pretty good at that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're British, dude. All the football clubs and shit. You know what I mean? Like watch an Arsenal fan fight a fucking,
Chelsea. Oh, fuck you up, cunt.
Yeah, dude.
Fucking blew off right now.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Well, so like, that's just, you got the Hotspurs versus Arsenal or whatever, people are Chelsea FC versus whatever, but it's like that in like most westernized first, I'll call them second world countries.
We have to have imaginary conflict because there's not enough regular conflict to fulfill need and desire, especially like when you live in a culture that, I mean, I'm like a proper old school, like I'd say Anglo-Saxon old school. I think practicing with your bow and sword on Sunday is the way human beings are meant to be. Like that's the Kaczynskiite in me. I want us to all live in fucking huts, practicing with our
Yeah.
weapons on the weekend. But otherwise, we're
Drinking
just,
mead,
yeah,
eating
yeah.
meat on a stick. Yeah.
Dude, meat on a stick, fuck yeah. Like I wanna be barefoot tending to my fucking animals, like doing all that shit. Like that's the Kaczynski eye in me. But
Yeah,
like
I'd probably wear those little stupid shoes. I've seen memes. It's the Timothy Chalamet looking shoe.
but they would look sharp because you actually
Yeah.
you just live in a fucking hut. But like
Yeah, dude. I mean,
it-
I'll be honest, dude. I'd probably join some sort of like. I would love to be at night. You know what I mean? I'd probably get my head squashed with a morning star, but I would give it my best shot. You know what I mean?
hell yeah.
Go raid some French villages or something.
Absolutely. Fuck those guys. They live 200 miles in that direction. They speak different from us. Fuck them.
Yeah, dude. Don't get me started on the French, man. I don't, and all my French Canadian friends are going to hear this. Sorry, but whatever, dude. I don't even got to tell you. You should know, and if you don't know, you're being willfully ignorant.
Yeah. No. Hate yourself.
Yeah, but
like
I don't know, man.
Like in my most simple view of everything, and I think we should have a simpler view on a lot of things. At the end of the day, in my mind, just my opinion, we're a glorified animal. We're a really fucking clever animal. And I think we should respect that with our diet, with how we live, with our fucking screen time, like all of that stuff. Like our brains have allowed us to do really cool shit. End of the day though, we have very basic needs. And I think we'd all be a lot healthier if we, not to squash anyone's fucking dreams of being an astronaut or whatever, but I think we should have pretty basic desires too. I think we'd all be a lot better.
Yeah.
With kind of like what you were getting to at the start, like the the full classic nuclear household. I think humans really desire that. We can all, I love my freaks and geeks to varying degrees, but like those guys, you're outliers. I think most of us could really get on with like a much more natural way of living. But like America, while it's great and awesome in so many ways, like the excess has really robbed us of that more primal connection. And even the way that people are trying to get back to the fucking primal connection is so fucking American. Like that who's that fucking like red as fuck
Liver King?
Liver King. Like that's like
you saw him at SHOT Show? Did you see him walk around SHOT Show? Yeah, it was bad.
Glowing red. But America is so fucking warped that even our idea of like returning to nature and you see all these fucking like X.com like Twitter influencer types and you see on Instagram too who post like these like clearly roided out fucking dudes with a big beard and they're like, see this fucking caveman? That's what a dude is. It's like, motherfucker, the primal man was like 5'3" and like fucking minimal. Like
yeah.
But
that's just it. We have this glorification, like we glorify, we romanticize ideas, and the ideas that we romanticize are created by a guy who saw something that was created by another guy that was at some point was probably some form of propaganda. Now everything there's very little, I don't know, the whole there's no such thing as coincidences, they poison our food, they poison our water. I'm drinking out of a plastic water bottle right now. That's going straight to my balls.
They're trying to make kids gay.
Well, okay, so listen, like not to get off on too deep into this, right? But when you look at like the heightened plastic intake, when humans consume plastic, whether it's from our food or from our surrounding environments, whatever, it does create more estrogen production. So
I've that stuff too.
Yeah. Well, whenever Alex Jones did the gay frog shit, he says things that are extremely outlandish, but if you dig into what he says, not always, but most of the time, there's some grain or element of truth in that. And I do feel that
alcoholic who used to and really still is a great investigative journalist, just completely out of his fucking mind 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
You can see like when you catch the grain of truth, you're like, I see what he was getting at.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and it's funny, picking up from your alcoholic thing. You know what else creates a lot of estrogen? Beer. Like dudes are like, "I'm a man, I'm drinking beer," and I'm like, "Oh, that's crazy, dude. You're gonna get titties." And I'm,
Yeah.
like, like, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with drink your fucking lager or whatever, but like people don't realize that like all these chemicals we put into us have your body keeps a score. People, that's a saying, and it can be said for the people you sleep with. The even if you don't get an STI, you have I believe you exchange energy with people, and you can give parts of yourself away you can never get back. And I think it's the same thing with alcohol. Your body, like, you are chipping away at your body, and like everybody wants to take the edge off. Trust me, I get it. As
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
who's taken the edge off quite a bit over the years,
Hey,
I get it. But the problem is,
fun.
yeah, well, it's like overworking clay. Eventually it becomes rigid and then it breaks. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing with the human body and spirit and mind. You can overwork it and then you will break it. Whether yourself or the conditions that you live in can break you down. So, I think the excess is a way for us to become so comfortable that we won't be willing to even care. I always say that what I believe the future kind of holds, and getting into conspiracies a little bit here, but I got to say it because I believe it's where we're going, not just as America, but as like, the first world. I'm saying that in quotations, air quotes, the first world. It's like, because really this is lipstick on a pig, right? What good is all this wealth if we're just terrible human beings? You know what I mean? Like, to be real. So I think somebody called it Zen fascism, right? That's riding the wave, So when you get into looking at the future, what this really means is that I believe that we are becoming so I don't like we're unable to be autonomous to the point to where we'll subject ourselves to living in an online platform because it's safe, because the environment's fucked, or there's too much
Dude,
violence, or World War III,
we just
or
experienced that with Meta. Like, the whole
yeah,
Metaverse thing during COVID, they were
yeah,
like, oh, well, I guess outside's fucked and maybe it'll be fucked forever. So at least
yeah.
we'll be together in the Metaverse. It's like, oh, whoa, no, thank you. What
So
the?
when you do that, people don't realize like what would be the point of that. I'm like, when you do that, you live by their terms and conditions. They don't have to get rid of the Constitution. They don't even have to change the laws, because once you're operating on that and you're addicted to living in that, you get everything you want instantly. You will have no need for rights, because your rights will cease to exist, because you're no longer what we can consider a human being. You're just some fucking program entity. You're a NPC that you created yourself and injected yourself into the program. And I have devout Christian friends that, and my parents, for example, they always talk about the mark of the beast and everything. And, personal faith, I struggle with my identity as far as like religion goes and stuff. But I do believe that if there were to be the Antichrist or the mark, if that were to come about, I do believe that that would be some sort of creation through AI, because it's antithetical to the idea of a God. Just like the internet is like a false world, it's like a mockery of reality, and all the sins that you want to participate in are right at your fingertips. So, what a better way to create this anti-God society than giving people all the controls to this world that they can be their own gods immediately. The thing is that once they upload their consciousness or their soul into this program, they are de facto in hell, So scripture, not getting too religious, but for my Christian friends, when you look at scripture, because I've read the Bible, I've read some other religious texts, but we're talking about Christianity mainly right here. When you read it, it says that their bodies will be fit for destruction once they take the mark, and they'll want to die, but they won't be able to. Well, to me, that sounds like you're in a fucking video game. You keep dying over and over and over again, and you'll want to die because you're going to feel it. They've even perfected now where you can be in a computer simulation. You can feel, they're like working on neurons and stuff connecting to your brain synapse, where you feel something in a game and you can feel it with your hands. So how long until they create torture devices and things like that
Well,
that can do the same?
talking about those
Yeah,
prison
well,
sentences that are like 10,000 years and like
yeah.
30 years or some crazy shit like that.
Well,
It's
it's
like,
in
oh,
movies.
fuck.
It's in movies and shows. Have you seen Altered Carbon?
Yep.
Yeah, so they put that guy in the torture device and they kill him, skin him, all that shit over and over again until he does whatever they want him to do. And then he doesn't, and then he comes out and he's just fine. He's fine. But he goes through this horrific torture
Actually,
over and over and over again and for eternity. So my idea of the mark of the beast and hell and all that, I feel like it can be shoehorned into that idea if we're looking at it strictly through Christianity. And again, I'm not saying that's the answer or anything, but I'm just saying, spitballing here, looking at it pragmatically. If, a lot of people choose religion because it makes sense of the chaos. And like, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's an easy way out because some people who are devout in their faith, whether it be Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, whatever, Krishna, it's not easy to live that way. It's a test to your faith. And there's people that I know, like I have a friend who became a devout Muslim and they're an atheist, but they became a devout Muslim because they said that it was testing their their will to their self to become a better person, a clean person who lives, a wholesome life by the principles that they believe in. And to me, that's a little confusing. But people need structure, and whether that's religion or the state, which is a religion, in my opinion.
absolutely.
Politics are religion, straight the fuck up. I don't care. People can argue all day. Well, you need to be political. Everything's political. Well, you know what, man? I just treat people with respect, and if I see it, the whole what is the what is it, the NAP or what was that, the libertarian thing?
Non-aggression principle. Wow,
Yeah,
I
I don't
haven't
really
talked
believe it.
about NAP in a long old time.
I know, man. I know. Well, it's because it's become like a perverted way to not do shit.
Yeah.
Like people are like, well, the NAP, I can't do anything. I don't believe in the NAP personally. I do in some aspects of it, but I think some things need to be aggressively handled. And that's not just the conquest side of my brain. It's you see some horrible shit, you should take care of it. You know what I mean?
I think there is a lot of autonomy that comes from one capability. I think that's probably why basically all of my close circle heavily believe in gun rights and way beyond gun rights, like just actually having the capability, performance with a gun and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And having a team and all that kind of thing. But like the NAP, I don't want to get into that fucking go too far down that, but
what's that called? The what's it? The fallacy where it's like if you let bad ideas grow, it's not actually what is that? I see it on Reddit every fucking day now. They're misusing it in most situations, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the tolerance paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, a lot of people go to me like, okay, well, how could an anarchist society ever exist? Like, there will always be a power vacuum and some dickhead who wants to fill it. Like, whether it's like a competent fucking fascist or like Earl at the gas station decided, hey, I've got a shotgun, I'm going to tell these pricks what to do now, like, and make his own little, the Republic of Dave or whatever. Like, that in a autonomous society, like, you would have to fucking pick weeds all the time. Like, this guy thinks that he's gonna come and fucking boss people around. This guy wants to like recreate slavery. This guy's gonna fucking like do what he wants with children. Like, I'm gonna go and shoot that motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, that's why. So, like, in my opinion, I think we've discussed this before. I don't know if we touched on it in the last episode, but anarchy is a tool. It's not a permanent state of being. It's a way to rewrite and recreate your environment. So, and this is just my opinion. Everybody's got different opinions on this, but I believe anarchy is not a long-term solution, but it's like a fire that you set to burn down whatever is currently in place, and then a new world is formed, whether usually by faction, and then those factions grow, and then there can be, sometimes there's civility and democracy, but you have to literally kill the bad guys to get there. It's like, if we look at the idea of communism, right? I think communism is naive, but because of human nature, the biggest foe that exists in the way of communism is human nature, and things like greed and the power, like the hunger for conquest and power and things like that. There will always be that. So if we have an anarchic society, it's great. But then once people organize, just like you always see that a fascist train today have you or whatever. It's true. What you want will only matter if you kill the guys that want something else, or you come to an agreement, which is how republics are formed and democracy is formed and things like that. But that takes a lot of running and gunning to get there, and that's why, like we see in communism, that's why they kill so many people, because it's not going to work unless they get rid of all the bad actors. The problem is that humans are fallible, and the people that engage in the killing typically get a little overboard with it. Like we take Stalin, for example, and then they just become exactly what they claim to be against, once again, because they're human beings. So you have to keep your own convictions with this stuff, especially with anarchy, because I'll tell you what, I might get capped the first 5 minutes anarchy is a thing, right, by some fucking basement dweller with a Mosin. However, if I don't, you best believe that I'm going to organize my friends, and we're going to have our own ideas on how shit's going to run, and we're going to kill you to make that happen. So if I'm doing that and everyone else is doing that, then it just becomes chaos until, Mad Max or whatever. So, human intellect's supposed to tone that down. And I think that, like, humans are tribal, will always be tribal till the day is gone, so your tribe, their tribe, his tribe, everyone's going to get together, and you'll form beliefs and you'll form groups. And I think people get lost with the term anarchy. They take it too literal, and I'm sure you've dealt with this all the time. You're like, it doesn't mean literally chaos. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It's controlled chaos in a way. But chaos has a place, but only for a period of time. It is not. There's no way that you'll ever be able to live forever in your little group with minimal skirmishes. There will always be, so it's basically wiping the slate and rewriting the environment that you're in. And I think that's the main point of, like, anarchy, is people always fall in line. There's doers and followers, leaders and followers, and that's how it has been since 1 BC, and that's how it is in 2025 AD. Is people will lead and people will follow. And most people, unfortunately, and it's been like this since before the internet, people are like, well, it's because of the damn internet. No, since before, the internet, since before electricity, people will take control of other people, and people will listen to them because they like their idea. They are well spoken. They have, good track record. They saved someone's life. They saved a village. Whatever, you know what I mean? People fell behind George Washington, or Alexander the Great, or whatever, Helen of Troy. Like, people fall behind people that they deem great leaders. Some of them are born into it with with kings and queens and all that shit. But that's not, humanity has had a long line of different kinds of rule. Democracies, republics, kinship, just everything. And however that gets to where it is, that comes from violence. And then we were talking about violence earlier. It's always going to be prevalent, and not all of it's evil. Not all of it's good. I was telling you before we got on this thing today, I was almost violent, and I talked myself down. I was being a Karen. I live in a small apartment complex. We have very limited parking. And some guy double parked I thought it was an Infiniti. I'm looking again, it's a Mazda. Double parked his Mazda SUV to take up like more than 2 spaces. And I was like, who the fuck did this? And I'm all mad. Go knock on a couple doors. I'm like, is that your car? Finally find the guy. The guy's super nice. He's a burnout, whatever. And instead of me being like, hey, you fucking moron, why the fuck? I was just like, hey, man, not trying to be a dick, but why? Like, could you please move your car? My
Clearly
girlfriend's
you
getting
hit the pin a little hard.
Yeah. So, and that comes into, you deciding, hey, it's not worth me going to jail for beating up some middle-aged dude because he was not paying attention and made a small mistake. But in the moment, I want to punch this guy in the head. You know what I mean? Like, I think I sent a picture of the car to my group chat, one of my group chats, and I said, now these are the people we need to deport to El Salvador. So, like, like little things can be big things to people, even if it's in a small amount of time. And, and I was relatively nice to the guy now that I think about it, but I still feel bad, for even bothering him. He was like, oh, I wasn't even going to be here that long. Is he an asshole for parking like that? Sure. But is it something that doesn't fucking matter, like, at all? Also, yes, so you got to pick and choose your battles. And the thing is that with anarchy, there will be people in power, or there will be people seeking power that will want to fucking shoot you for parking in the wrong spot, even during chaos.
Oh, dude,
and
people do that right now. Like, people get. I saw some fucking thing pop up about a guy getting shot in a parking lot at Popeyes over burnt biscuits. I was like, yeah, that's people act like that's my big thing that I've always heard is people are like, dude, anarchy would be chaos. And I'm like, dude, like, we live in chaos right fucking now. Like, you could. Like, does anyone remember the Nashville bombing? It takes a second, and you're like, oh yeah, that did happen. A block got blown up by an RV, and there was a warning before it went off. But there's so many fucking crazy incidents like that.
Speaking of bombings, we just had a fucking dude that's mad that he was born blow up was it in California? Dude, he's an antinatalist. What the fuck is that, dude?
To my point, there is so much of this shit going on that getting on a podcast to talk about, like, how chaotic and, like, what the chaos that is America, that's not even the first thing we talk about, because it's like, we'll get to that.
It's so it's the norm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, honestly, that's the thing, man.
Still.
Well, it's like, why do we conceal carry? The possible chaos. I mean, that's literally why. Like, at any given time. Now, people who don't live in America are like, oh, you're so scared you have to go to Walmart with a gun? And it's like,
I walk around London with a Glock 19. I wish I could. I would. In fact, everywhere I've carried in America, well, that's not true. I've carried in some fucking rough places. But London is like top 5 of all the fucking dodgy places I've been that I would have liked to have been carrying in. And one of the few I wasn't.
You don't want to get stabbed or acid attacked, bro.
Oh, dude, acid scares the fuck out of me. I would rather.
Yeah, me too, man.
Stabbed. Like, holy, I got a pretty serious 2nd-degree burn, like, down half my body. I'm not fucking Two-Face or anything, but I had like a spattering of fucking oil all over. That's why I wear the mask. I had a spattering of oil all over me, like a couple of years ago during COVID, and like the burns were fucked up, and it took months to recover.
Oil's like scary, dude. Yeah.
Dude, now imagine that shit with acid thrown in your face by some dickhead on the back of a bike, or like it was a weird thing happening in like the Muslim community a lot. Like a beautiful woman would be spited by some dude, like, and they would just throw acid in their faces. Like, fuck.
Well, unfortunately, that's one of those religions that you could know a bunch of really cool ones that are very modern with it. They drink, but then the few that are old school with it are really fucking old school with it, dude.
There were posters, like, you'd go to a public restroom in London, and on the back door of the cubicles, there were like often pamphlets about like, hey, don't partake in female genital mutilation. Like, in fucking London. They're like, hey, don't cut off the clip.
That is my problem with, so people can bitch about, like, well, Christians had, the Crusades, but I'm like, yeah, but, that was quite a while ago. People are like, well, in Uganda, I'm like, look, dude, in Western civilization, and that includes the UK, America, Canada, in recent years, I don't see other religions keeping up with the insanity that is present in a lot of the Muslim communities that we see here. And I'm not trying to single them out. Like I said earlier, I have a few friends who are Muslim, and some of them are great people. And it's a conservative way of thinking. But then you take a look at like, and I'm not defending Christianity here, and I gotta say that because whenever I say stuff like this, people are like, well, how old was Abraham's first wife and shit like that? But the guy that fucking founded the religion, how old was his first wife? She was 6, and then when she consummated the marriage, she was 9. You know what I mean? I can't go to London after this, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But like,
I'll visit Europe after this.
Yeah, you know what I mean though. Like, and then they're like, well, look at the day and age that it was in, and I'm like, no, dude. A lot of civilizations didn't fuck kids back then.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. And then they bring up Christianity. I'm like, yeah, but those were Hebrews, so it's also Abrahamic. So you haven't separated. You're bringing up another religion that was founded in the same area and the same kind of culture as the other one that I'm bitching about. So, there's a lot of like control that we see in Islam, and we don't have to get too deep into it. I don't want to open this can of worms, but there's something to be said that they're smart and they are taking over large portions of very civilized areas of the planet. And they're civilized themselves. A lot of them are very clean, well-dressed, well-spoken. But there's zero fucking reason why they should shut down London in the middle of the fucking day so you can pray to your God. I don't care if you pray to Jesus, Buddha, fucking Allah. I don't care who you pray to. For them to shut down a major metropolitan area and expect you to respect these dudes getting on the ground and praying, facing, Mecca is bullshit, man. We don't, we are civilized. So I personally believe you need to keep that shit inside. And then if you're not going to, well, you see it all the time. You'll see clips. Now, granted, clips don't show everything, but you'll see a lot of times like Christian street preachers are told they're going to be arrested for being bigots or whatever. And you hear what they say. And a lot of these Christians aren't like Westboro Baptist Church Christians. They're I'll say normal,
maybe a bit outspoken, but otherwise, yeah.
Outspoken, but they're not like, all fags are going to hell. They're not saying that shit.
Soldiers.
Yeah, but they're getting threatened or actually arrested by the police. But then you'll have Muslim street preachers, Muslim street preachers yelling and hollering and taking over corners and shit. And it's like, there was a guy, I think he burned a Quran and he's being dragged through the street with 2 by 2. Now this is me being, I guess, prejudiced, but there's 2 Arab men. They're bobbies or whatever, cops. 2 Arab men carrying them through the streets, dragging them. And I'm going to assume that they're Muslim. Stop. Sorry, my dog is freaking out.
No, you're good, dude.
I'm sure they're Muslim, and they not only are dragging him to the street, but they also released he hasn't even been to trial yet. They released his full name, where he works, and his address. In America, you can burn whatever fucking books you want. It doesn't matter if it's the Bible, the Quran, autobiography of, whoever. You can burn whatever you want. And I think that's beautiful. That's one thing America did do right. And I'm not saying we have full freedom of religion right now. There's some shit that's making me scratch my head. We've talked about it briefly with, you can't criticize Israel and stuff. Thank God a lot of those bills have been shut down. But the thing is, stop. You're ruining my train of thought, little dude. He's so cute, but he is a fucking...
We've had a lot of pet interruptions on the show lately. Whether it's me, Nathan, or our guest, it's kind of like a frequent. You can't. The little guys are like, "Why are you staring at your computer, dude? Talk to me."
Yeah, they don't get it. Well, it's because going back to humans being animals. This animal's like, "What are you doing? You're staring at a fucking screen, talking to the wall." You know what I mean? So, even the simplest of creature can see how stupid it is. Really, are they too stupid to understand, or are we too stupid to understand? It's like it's a toss up.
me and my fiance will be like, not quite doom scrolling, but I'll be checking a post or doing my little post and ghost, whatever the fuck. Even if it's like I'll be on my phone for 5 minutes, my cat will come up and fucking like headbutt my phone out of my hand. I'm like, yeah, you're right, little dude. Like,
yeah.
Pay
attention to me.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you, dude?
Yeah. Dude, did you see you watch any of that shooting of the guy? Was it
the Vegas thing?
Yeah.
So,
Keymod's not coming back. Suck my fucking dick, dude. I'm just saying. Everyone is sucking Keymod today. I'm like, listen, man.
Sig Romeo. I'm like, you know what? I'll give the Sig Romeo its due. Like, you know, most optics built in Holosun factories are very good. It's literally just a rebranded Holosun.
It really is, dude. It really is. Yeah.
To its credit, like Phil used it to shoot out to 700 at like some prequel class. So like, it's not bad at all. If you're gonna get a budget optic, it's not the worst. But
yeah, but I'm not gonna clone some fucking LVPD's gun because they wasted some moron. You know.
See, like people, I appreciate that the meme pages were instantly getting ahead of it. Like, oh, you know, we cloning this now, and it's like, that's the best way to hopefully stop people from being like, oh boy, guess what I'm gonna build next. Like, please don't. Please.
Yeah. Well, it's just so ugly, dude. I don't care if it's people are like, well, technically it's better than M-Lock. I'm like, dude, it's not quad rail either. So just I don't care.
Dude.
Yeah, dude. Fucking it to me, it looks like shit. You know, I think my first AR had key mod on it. It was like a Spikes rifle. And this is like 2011.
Please tell me you had like a Jackery fucking like the
spider. No, I never did the. No, I never did the Jack.
I was liking those from Britain on like 2016 Gunstagram, and I look back at
dude,
my oldest saved guns. I was like, Jesus.
Well, everyone starts somewhere. My first rifle was a Spikes, standard 16-inch AR. I think I had a sight mark on it. You know, my first, because I didn't fucking know.
They were like trying to punch out of their box, being like, "Hey, we're like not the most illegitimate optic company, right?" Like they were trying to pulling on some like T-Rex arm shit. It's like, no, back in your cave, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So this is I want to say I got my first AR in like 2012, maybe. God, 13 years ago. Times have changed, man. My first rifle, right? It was a pistol. Technically, was a Draco, and a Mossberg shotgun. I think we talked about it last time, but you know, all these meme pages can try to make things. We know how meme pages go, dude. We've talked about this not on the podcast, but meme pages like they can make or break. I mean, I'm a meme page in a lot of ways, but you know, I find that if you like, let's say I post 20 pictures, right? I'm selling a jacket. I've literally done this. I'll do like 7 to 10 photos of me in the jacket, you know, in various poses and doing cool shit or whatever. People see it, be like, oh, that's cool. But then, you know, you do 10 really, really funny memes, you know, which are time relevant or like period relevant, just funny, kind of like makes people go, fuck, man, I haven't seen that like in, you know, 5 years or whatever. But then that gets shared, and then it's a great marketing technique, you know. So I get it. But then there's meme pages out there that solely exist to talk shit, and you know, I won't name drop any of them, but there's a couple out there that really just love running their mouths, but they're not, you know, they're either just extremely like. There's a lot of racist meme pages, right? And what's funny to me is like, I don't care. You do whatever the fuck you want. Like, honestly, I don't care. But the thing is, you're going to hide. That's when I think it's a little bitch made. You know what I mean? Like, there's a page that went after, I don't remember who they went after, somebody I'm friends with. And I commented on there and I was like, hey, buddy, this is pretty funny. You know, isn't your name, like, I knew who it was. And this guy didn't do his due diligence and he had partial license plate. I mean, I have, you know, some of us have people, we can pull info. Like if I really want to find you, I'm sure I can.
Well, you don't even need to have like, you know, a fucking PI.
Anything crazy. Yeah, you can pim eyes or whatever, dude.
Some fucking dude, not to get us too off topic, but some dude was rude to my fiance at work the other day. And I was like, oh, did you get his name? She's like, yes, I did. Like, basically, it went to the point where these motherfuckers. I can't go into it without doxing what she does. But anyway, the customer was rude about like some shit that would get her in trouble if she didn't stop them. And very fucking polite about it. and she was like, "Hey, like, can you please not?" And then these people fucking like flipped her off. Oh, she had talked about how the fact that we were getting married, and this dude fucking goes to her in his closing remarks, goes, I hope you guys get divorced in a year, and I hope he cheats on you. It's like,
Jeez.
what a fucking cunt. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, if you'd have told me when this guy was there, I would have drove over and slashed his fucking tires. However,
Yeah.
tell me his name. And like, she's like, oh, what, you think you can find some info on this guy? I'm like, absolutely. So like within 10 minutes, I have like his name, the entirety of his family, where he works. He was a fucking like VP of something at a very important company. And
Yeah.
anyway, had like a whole fucking packet where he lived,
Dossier.
like,
Yeah.
towns. I'm like, this was me tired, like going like 15% effort. Like if I wanted to be
Yeah.
if this guy had like really wronged you and you said go ahead, I
Yeah.
mean fuck, I give it to like 3 of my autistic friends in my group chat, and it's like, guys, fucked. But yeah, sorry, I didn't knock you off course.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, dude, you're 100% right. I
But
mean, that's the thing is like
it's so easy.
people are, yeah, people are just really haphazard with stuff. One guy, I even one of these meme pages, I literally, because I was trying to do that industry fight night, and I had this idea for people that don't know. I have this idea. There's so much drama in the gun industry that we put together a fight night during SHOT Show, and we could like, people will get paid that work it, but overall, like the bulk of the money would go to some charity or whatever, and we would have big industry names fight. And I decided that it would be better for legal reasons just to do boxing, because if we do MMA, you're going to get some guy that's going to fucking tear someone's head off because he's like a Navy SEAL and he's been doing MMA for 40 years or something. And it's other guys, you know what I mean? So I wanted to be relatively sporty, like a sportsman-like thing. So I figured boxing was enough so people could train. Well, I have a bunch of people who are still on board with this. I have sponsors that would do it, some pretty big sponsors that would bankroll it. So not out of the question for the future, but so last year I was really pushing it because I was at Commando Store, and I had their blessing, and I was planning on being a shot and everything. Well, this guy was like, looks like he screenshot one of my clothing pages, which isn't launched yet. It's kind of embarrassing that it's not fully launched. International Haters Club. So the point of IHC, it's me and another guy that runs a pretty big firearm page that a lot of people know. Me and him decided, because he's a lot like me, where we're nice guys, but like we don't like to be shit on. Like we just don't take shit from people. We're pretty unapologetic about that. So we were like, you know what? We have other brands, but let's just morph and become IHC, International Haters Club. And what the idea of that was, we were going to make merch, but we also wanted to, host fights and things like that. So, because me and the guy have been through some, we've done our fair share of dirt. So we thought it would be appropriate, just given our backgrounds and then, the way that things are, because how often you get on the internet, probably every day, where some gun guys are going at it and they hate each other, and there's all like, yeah, brother, I would, blah, blah, blah. People do soft threats all day.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be healthy to just, like, in a controlled environment, you can wear gloves or whatever, in a controlled environment, beat the shit out of each other, for
and then we all know
2-minute rounds.
Only one of you gets an opinion.
Exactly. That's that's might makes right. I say that all the time, and people are like, what's that mean? That's exactly what it means.
Well,
your opinion.
When dudes like go to the aggro route, like there's 2 ways to do it. You can clearly show and make it self-evident that someone's a dumbass, and it's done.
Yep.
But if you're just gonna fucking butt heads over years and you one up, then someone needs to fucking clock the other and call it a day.
I think it's a pretty definitive thing. You disagree, you fight, the winner, because it's got to be one of those stalemate things. I'm not saying like you're like the sky is blue and some fucking buff dumbass who can fight's like it's green, and you're like, no, it's not. He beats you up, and then he's like, told you it's green. That's not how it works. But people will take my statement that way. But my main point is like, you give people a platform to have opinions like social media, but then they can't back it up. It's kind of silly. So you have all these meme pages that are calling people losers and all this shit for having merch companies or whatever. And this one meme page, when I started IHC, screenshot it and said, it looks like these bozos are trying to start a fight night, LOL or whatever. And I messaged the guy and I said, hey, why don't you come? I will literally, you are formally invited to come and you can participate as well. And then he didn't respond. He screenshot the message and posted it again and said, if I was trying to make a statement on you, I think everybody would know. And he put my face on it. And I responded to that and I said, okay, now I'm formally inviting you to fight me. And then you can tell everybody how stupid I am when you beat me up. And his only response was, I have warrants out there. Now, most likely he's full of shit, and I mocked him a good bit. At the time, he was a smaller page. He's a little bit bigger now, this one specific guy. He's a little bit bigger now. He has some takes I agree with. I don't follow him, obviously, but, I think I've texted you about him. He was talking shit on you and this podcast even. And
oh, yeah, I was like, that's funny. I mean, yeah. People always have, people always will.
Of course, that's the nature of the game. If you're a public figure in any way, you put yourself out there, you're going to get shit on, and that's fine. But sometimes it aggravates me, and when I get aggravated, I get aggro, and I want to fucking fight about it. You know what I mean? So it comes from being bullied a lot as a kid, and then eventually you beat up your bully, and you're like, hey, this works. This stops the onslaught. It's not true. People can make fun of you until you're dead, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's totally fine. But I do think there's merit to being able to be like, oh, you don't want to fight? Oh, so you're a bitch? Okay, so I'm still better than you in this way. And in this way, meme pages are not some like sacred, devious like mastermind. I mean, some of them are, don't get me wrong. Some of these meme pages are really good. But what I mean by that is they're just some fucking loser in their basement fucking hating because that's all they can do, and that's fine. Like, it's a free country, free internet, do whatever the fuck you want. But some of these guys are going to have it catch up to them. And I'm not saying it's going to be me or or you or whoever, but some of these guys eventually are going to have what they say and do on the internet become real life. And I was talking to one of my friends about this the other day. He pulled up on someone. He has a firearm company. He makes parts and stuff. I won't say his name, but he's pretty well known. But he's a tough dude. He's a big dude. He's got tattoos. He's from a rough area. He's been through his shit. He's been locked up. He's a law-abiding citizen now, but he's been through the shit. And he'll just pull up. Some guy like insulted him and like his wife or something, and he pulled up on him. It was like, the guy was like, hey, it was on the internet. It's not real life. And he goes, everything's real life, dude. What are you talking about? And I don't know what the outcome of that was, but I wouldn't want to be the other guy, and that's the thing. People don't realize that can happen to anybody. And it can happen to me. I could say this, I could be talking about this right now. And the one guy who I'm mentioning on this podcast, he knows it's him. He could pull up tomorrow and beat me up. It's like not going to happen, but it's possible, right? You know what I mean? So the thing is like, people can run these faceless pages, but they're pretty useless if you don't attach yourself to them. And like, that makes you a target, unfortunately, when you attach yourself to it. Like me attaching myself to my page, I get, people like, look at this fucking tattooed moron. Oh, he's got face tattoos. Or is he a criminal? Is he a Nazi? Is he, whatever people say. I've kind of opened myself up to that criticism, and that's fine. Like, you know what? You don't like me because you think I look like this or that. That's fine, man. If you want to take the time to get to know me, and I want to get to know you, because I'm not going to spend time getting to know everybody. I can't. I physically cannot. You know how that goes. I get hundreds of messages sometimes in a day, and like I respond to as many people as I can, but everybody gets burned out, and it's not a personal thing. Now, if you send me something really fucking weird, take this personal. I won't respond. I don't know if you saw this, but some dude sent me fucking like 200 messages of pictures of dinosaurs and like weird Christian boomer memes and shit. Yeah, I'm not gonna respond to that. He still sends them to me now, like dude, the other day.
I told you that was a sick dinosaur collection. I think you should.
Yeah, it was pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty sick. I had a post on my page. It didn't fit my grid, so I took it down. But I thought it was pretty funny. I had it posted for a while. He's just going, dude, and like, there are people who will talk to themselves in your inbox, and I think mainly there's probably women that deal with this, but I'm sure some of you gun tuber dudes and stuff, they're going to hear this. You get it too. Dudes will just fire, clap, laugh, clap, fire. And you're like, hey, man, I really appreciate your support. And I'm not saying I don't want people to try to engage with me because, like, that's why I'm on there, right? I want engagement. But, you know, maybe be, like, more cool about it. You know what I mean? Like, people will, like, another thing, people try to rift with you when they don't know you, and that shit doesn't work, man. They can't be like, oh like some
with wrong vibe.
Yeah, man. Well, some guy responded to my story. I went on like a tirade about communism the other day because there was somebody that I'm friends with who's a homosexual, is really into communism, and we got in an argument because I was like, what communist leaders in the past do you respect for the? And he had said something like he thinks like Shay is based, and I was like, you're gay, and he's like, yeah. I'm like, dude, he hated gay people, and he's like, no, he didn't. And then I pulled up quotes, and not like quotes, not even just quotes, but like actual actions. People are like, well, those quotes aren't real. Okay, did he not kill all these people? Like, did he not fucking, you know what I mean? So we got in this thing. Well, anyway, I was posting this tirade. I try not to get too crazy like that because, yeah, it's fucking Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And this dude responded, and he's like, come on, bro, we all know you're a leftist, LOL. And I was like, what? Like, what do you, like, dude, I don't understand.
That's one of the hardest things, like, with this, the whole parasocial thing. And, you know, much love to all of you guys who are normal, but a lot of people, like, they'll read into a joke or, like, just, like, any kind of angle that's off from where you actually are and be like, oh, this guy's like me. In, like, in a way that you're not. Like, I've had same kind of thing, like, everything from far left through the far right, like, send me a meme that's, like, entirely socialist leaning or communist or like some fascist or Nazi bullshit, and they're like it's kind of like a nudge in the ribs, and you're like, bro, this is fucking dumb. Like,
like, well, people are binary, right? Like binary minded. Sorry, everybody, don't fucking freak out. But people are very like 2-track, like, or 1-track minded. You know, they're either left or right. And like people, you know, there's a whole fucking subreddit, enlightened centrism, you know, and like all this shit. Like people think it's bad people think it's bad to be normal now. And like, it's funny coming from the guy with a hammer tattooed on his face, right? But, you know, overall, I'm a pretty normal guy. Like,
man, you know, talking about nuclear families with,
well, you know, like, here's the thing, man. Like, I know, yeah. Well, I did this to myself because I hate myself. I have my own trauma. I've lived through my shit, and I try not to make it everyone else's problems. Sometimes it bleeds through, and that's my own issues that I got to work through. However,
oddly based.
I don't I don't want everybody policing me and putting me in their box, just like we were talking about Nathan earlier. I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, but we were talking about how, like, he specifically really hates liberals. He's like a heavily armed Canadian guy. You know what I mean? So, like, it's the same thing. It's like, everyone wants to put labels on shit because it makes it more understandable. When we go to watch a movie, you know, if you hear that it's horror, you're like, okay, I know to be scared. Or it's comedy, I know to laugh.
I know.
The reason why is, humans need cues because we fall in line. This goes back to all the shit we were talking about. Is like, people want structure. They crave structure. Whether it's, you know, gardening every morning at 7 a.m., having your morning tea, reading the next chapter of The Art of War, and like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is, you know, there's simple disciplines that you can enjoy. And then there's the bigger ones, right? 9 to 5, cubicle, speed limit, diet, you know, like whatever. You know, and that's more canonical to like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This falls in line. Okay, I go to church every Sunday. I don't actually believe in anything, but I'm supposed to do this. I pay all my taxes more than I need to because that's just how it is. And I hold the door for everybody. And like, you know, and not all of that's bad, right? But my point is, like, there are people that just do things because they're disciplined to do them, whether they're self-disciplined or they've had their hands slapped enough by cops or the news or whatever. People all follow like a phenotype or like a structure for them that's laid out for them, whether you believe that's like divine creation or just humans have done it for so long that we just kind of fall into it. Whatever it is that we all follow a blueprint, whether we want to or not. Even us who are on the outlying, anarchic guys. Now, every once in a while, you run into a guy that's like Big Lebowski, and you're like, "What the fuck, dude?" But you don't want to live like that guy, dude. Some people are like, "Man, I would love to live like that." No, you wouldn't, dude. Guy smells bad. He's got no clothes that fit him. He's got bugs in his house.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm happy that I give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I'm not happy with how much of a fuck I give. That's a different problem. But the thing is that there's people you run into that just don't care about anything. And some people are like, man, that must be nice. It's not.
Well,
they think it's nice because they're stupid, you know?
My favorite test of, like, the most basic test of the ability for self-governance. You heard this? The shopping cart.
Yeah, the shopping cart, right? Yeah. I was going to say that earlier, dude.
Dude, every anarchist I know, when they get back to their vehicle after being in the supermarket, they push I say most anarchists I know, they push the shopping cart back to the corral. They don't leave it out for someone to hit with their car or like taking up a parking spot or doing some like dumb shit. And a lot of you see, the fluoride stare motherfuckers who are just like, I'm just gonna leave this here because fuck people. I don't give a fuck.
Well, it goes to what we talked about the onslaught of single mothers, which we can attribute to CIA and other issues. Another reason why there's so many fucking single mothers is the same reason why a lot of carts don't get put back. The erosion of responsibility, self-responsibility. People have no self-respect. So if they have no self-respect, they're not going to respect, the things that we choose as like a commonplace in society to make it better. They're not going to stop at stop signs when there's traffic. They're not going to not text and drive, in rush hour. They're, not trying to make it all traffic shit, but you know what I mean? They're not going to live responsibly. And it's the same, they knock a girl up like, oh, fuck it. I don't need to take care of that kid. He'll be all right. Give it up for adoption or, abort it, whatever, and we live in this age of irresponsibility and, people get to it. The internet shit we were just talking about with meme pages, same thing. They don't have to worry about consequences mostly because most people are just going to lay down and take it, or they're going to be too afraid to argue or whatever. So all of that is connected. There's no more consequences for the little things. So the little things are done, but then it turns into the straw that broke the camel's back. And you take more, and eventually you've taken everything that the society that people have created has given you. And then you're just another welfare case, either literally or metaphorically. And you're like, nah, it's not my problem. And I say that about things too. I say, well, it's not my problem. And because it's not, it makes me feel better when I'm looking at a dude staring at me and I'm in my car listening to loud music. He's holding a sign that says, please help, anything helps. And I'm just like, well, that sucks for you. It makes you feel a little bit better, but at the same time, you're like, damn, that fucking blows for that guy. And I've given money to homeless people, but I've also seen homeless people that I give money to fucking buy beer or cigarettes or drugs or whatever with it. So you got to kind of weigh your humanity versus reality, or, and that's a different, psychological thing we can get into another time. But my point is long story short, sorry to get off on a rabbit trail, is like we're in the age of not only excess, but excess with no expected responsibilities. So it's like you can have all of this shit and nobody's going to check in on you. And I think a lot of that is the loss of parents, loss of discipline. I'm not saying you should have to smack your kids around. I was smacked around as a kid or spanked or whatever. I think it works. Some people don't believe in corporal punishment, and that's fine. I've also seen kids get worked over verbally to the point to where it seems worse than getting spanked, and it works. You know what I mean? But there's a thin line between discipline and abuse, and I think most parents who are going to listen to this know that. You can't just whoop the shit out of your kid. Now, if your kid, does something terrible, you catch them with heroin, or they hurt an animal or something like that, sure, whoop the shit out of your kid. But at the end of the day, the kid's got to come back. You got to live with it. You got to be a parent. You got to be a father or a mother or whatever, and you have to invest in your kids. And I think there was this weird thing that happened when we were in the party age of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where a lot of those people who became parents never stopped living that party age, and then they spit out these kids. Yeah, they spit out these kids, and they're like, "Oh, it's a golden age of America. I don't need to fucking America will take care of my kids. TV will teach my kids.
Best of luck, honey."
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's, we have helicopter parents, iPad kids, all that shit, and it's like, I know kids that were raised by strictly watching television, and if all they watch is bad shit, they're only going to learn, guess what? Bad shit, So, I think a big thing that really helped me, and I'm not the epitome of, I'm not a stellar individual, right? So when I'm talking about this stuff to your listeners, I'm not saying this is the end all be all. Obviously, I have my own issues. But something that I think was very helpful growing up that kept me from being even worse than I am. And, and all my siblings, like I got a handful of siblings, and they're all really great people forging ways for themselves. I'm kind of like the black sheep. But family dinner.
Really, there's no black sheep in your family, Jay?
I am the black sheep of the family for sure, dude. Well, me and my other sister, one of my sisters, she's kind of like me, in that way. We both went through a lot of really heinous shit when we were kids, and not the fault of our parents, but some stuff happened to both of us. So we kind of gained a weird relationship from that, and kind of became like the rebellious two. So there's 4 of us, and 2 of them, one is, I won't go into too much detail, but one is very well established in the military. He's very well rounded. He's like an American hero type of guy. Beautiful family and shit. And then my other sister, she's wonderful, very sweet. She works in the medical field. And then it's me and my other sister. Like, we both have worked bars and done serving and blue collar and tattoos and like all that stuff. My brother's got a bunch of tattoos too. But my point is like, me and my sister are kind of the black sheep. But my point is, like, something that kind of helped us from going even further astray from the blueprint, or whatever you want to call it, is family dinner. And that doesn't mean, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be your blood family, or what is it? Whatever you're like. God, I'm sorry. It's been a long day, man. It doesn't have to be your blood family. This could be literally anybody that holds you responsible and accountable for your actions that you trust, and being close to you, sitting down with them and other people that you trust that hold you accountable and that are honest with you, sitting around with them and talking about your day and discussing world events and things like that. I think doing that a couple times a week really helps you be grounded, not only as a kid, but as an adult too. I think having good friends that hold you accountable for your actions is something that's very, very important. And I think a lot of people don't have that now. And a lot of us only have it online, but, and it's very easy online to have a group of guys that just gas you up at your toxic behavior and like, yeah, fuck that bitch and blah, 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 blah. Women do it too. Any of those like people that are just like there to be a man's man or woman's or girl's girl or whatever. It's very easy to like perpetuate like really toxic environments like that. At the same time, having a group of people that hold you accountable and responsible, I think is very pertinent to being successful, whether as you're, doing it as a kid. I think it helps breed success. And then doing it as an adult, I think it helps keep you grounded in reality. I had a group of dudes. We don't all really talk as much anymore, just got busy with life. But I had a group of dudes that I would, I went through some shit, and I would either be suicidal or angry or want to get in a bar fight. And these dudes would be like, "You're a fucking moron. Shut the fuck up. Stay home. Do not go out. I'm going to call you. I'm going to drive there and smack you." Stuff like that. And like, I'm not saying it needs to be that extreme, right? These are all pretty wild dudes.
Vernacular for different groups.
Exactly. Yeah, different vernacular, whatever. These guys would drive to my house and smack me, though, for sure. Good. But they've also sent me money when I needed help with bills, or they've called me when a family member has died, or they've driven 10 hours to see me just because I was having a bad weekend or whatever. So my point is like, people don't really have that like on a mass scale. A lot of people don't have that. Or like everybody is superficial. Like I'm only friends with this guy because it makes me friends with these people, and ladder climbing shit. And I think a lot of the stuff now, like as an adult, you have friends like that. A lot of that starts when you're a kid, and I think family dinner can be like an organic way to kind of keep people rooted in like, you know, decent culture, talking about, you know, their troubles and things. You know, when you're a kid, you don't know everything. So sitting down with people who are well established, whether that be your father or your older brother or just an older friend or your uncle, whatever, sitting down with them and talking to them and being able to be like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or, you know, I saw this today and it made me angry. And they're like, well, you shouldn't be angry because of that. You should be angry because of this. And then explain to you, you know, racial tropes or, you know, how the government works or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have that as a kid, which I think most people don't now, you only have the internet, which is unfettered insanity.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is why we have a lot more darker days now. Where, you know, back in the day, you know, I call my little brother. I have a kid that's my brother's best friend that basically lived with us the last couple of years. I lived in my house with my family. He was at our house nonstop. We basically unofficially adopted him, right?
Yeah.
And you know, he didn't have anybody to raise him where he came from, and I believe that he's very successful now. He works for Boeing, great guy. Been through some pretty rough shit, but he's honestly one of my favorite people on the planet. Like I said, he's my brother's best friend. He, I feel like, can attribute some of that to just being in a conducive environment with positive parental figures and siblings that were just like, hey man, how's your day? How are you doing? Oh, I care about you, you know, and not everybody has that luxury, right? It's a luxury. Well, I think a lot of people don't understand that having a family is a luxury. Not everybody has that. I have friends that have had their parent kill themselves in front of them as a small kid, and seeing what that does to their psyche, you know, that person, there's a specific person I have in mind who had that happen, and they're a successful person in their own right, and they forged their way, but their life has been fucking hard, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't think, you know, most people don't have that happen to them, but I have friends who have had their sibling kill themselves in front of them and stuff like that. There's a lot of suicide, you know, that goes into this stuff. And that's something a lot of people struggle with. I struggle with it. A lot of my friends do too. And having people to talk to about that have been affected by that firsthand can make the difference between you doing it and not doing it, or you realizing that there are people that do care about you or that you have something to live for. And there's days I wake up, not to get real dark with it, but why not? Why not just fucking pivot with male suicide, right? You know, I have days, and you know, yeah, a lot of people have days where they wake up and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it could be something real small, man. You're out of gas, your battery dies in your car, you're sick for the 10th time in a row, you hate your fucking job, your bank is overdrafted, you saw the wrong kind of comment on the internet, you saw a video of some kid getting his head blown off in Syria, whatever, you know, literally daily lived experiences for all of us now with access to the internet and cars. One day like that can make somebody just go, you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. You know, and sometimes I think about it. I'm like, man, you know, I've had more than 10 friends over my course of my life kill themselves. And when I'm feeling apathetic, I'm like, man, they're lucky. They got out. And, you know, that's a shitty way to think. You know, when I'm in my right mind, I'm not like all feeling pitiful and shitty. You know, obviously that's bad. You know, they didn't get away out. They just gave up. And that's the thing. Like, I have a lot of friends and that bounce off of me. Whenever I need someone to talk to, they're there for me. Whenever they want to kill them, I'm there for them. And they're like, I have nothing to live for. And sometimes they literally don't have anything to live for other than hanging with the boys.
Yeah.
And what are you going to say? Yeah, you do. No, you don't say that. You shoot them straight. Yeah, not today, but maybe tomorrow. And the thing is like a lot of these guys don't have family. So you can't be like, oh, your mom will be sad or your brother will be sad, your kids, whatever. Some of these guys don't have literally anything. So then you got to kind of forge it in a way where you're like, yeah, but if you kill yourself, you can't ever have sex again. Can't ever get drunk with your boys again. And sometimes, as stupid as that sounds, it works, man. Like, it's the little things. I just talked about this with my friend the other day. Sometimes it's the little things that save your life. A bite of ice cream, a really nice smelling flower, a dog. I love bees. Like, I think bumblebees are really cool. Yeah, I'll be sitting outside all fucking depressed. I'll look over and I'll see a little bumblebee landing on a flower. And I'm like, oh, sick, dude. That dude's cool, man. Nature's really cool. You know, touching grass goes a very long way. Out of all this other shit, drinking with the boys, all that, yes, whatever. Going outside, getting sunshine on your face and breathing the air goes a long way, man. Maybe not if you live in New York City. I don't know. I can't help you, but
dude, I moved countries because gray skies were fucking like the worst my depression has ever been was, I mean, unsurprisingly, living in Britain. Like, genuinely, just the fucking weather and lack of sunlight like goes a long way to contributing to that shit. And you fucking see it out in society. Like, a bit of sun.
Well, it's just, you know,
does wonders.
When I was younger, you know, doing the armed security thing, working at clubs and bars and stuff, I was a night shift guy. Oh, and right. I'll tell you what, man, I didn't realize how sick I was all the time until I switched to days. And like, I have friends that have worked night shift now for over 10 years and we're the same age. A lot of them take care of themselves, but they look older. They looked used up. They look just glossed over. And it's just, and you know, and it sucks because, you know, some of us have to work nights, you know, for this reason or that reason, or some guys just like it. You know, I used to be one of those edgy, like, you know, like I've always been into like the hardcore skinhead stuff, but I like have a very heavy goth streak, right? I was like a goth jock and I loved being pale and like, I don't fuck the sun, you know, and like, and it honestly, man, like until you're, you know, I lived in Florida at the time. So, you know, what are you not ever going to go outside? No. And I didn't for a long time. And I was depressed all the time. And I was like, I don't know why I'm so depressed. All I do is stay inside and watch TV. But there's a reason why we need vitamin D and shit, vitamin C. Like we need all of the vitamins that we get from being outside and fresh air. And, you know, animals that live their life in a cage don't live as long as animals that live, you know, in, you know, grass fed or, you know, free range or whatever they call it, you know, we're all in captivity, right? I'm not saying we have it as bad as a chicken that lives on a farm, but we are on our own farm, right? So, I mean, being free range is a lot better than being in the cage. And a lot of us put ourselves in that cage ourselves. We have their own key. It's like, you know, I talk to guys and I talk to them about their lifestyle. And I'm like, dude, you literally just told me you lock yourself in a prison cell. You have the key. You lock yourself in. You throw the key on the ground. You're like, I'm in fucking prison. That's most dudes. You know what I mean? It's like, whether it's a mindset or a lifestyle or whatever, that's how people are. And like, of course you want to kill yourself, man. I would too, you know, and I have friends that love me. I have family that loves me and I have a girlfriend that loves me. But, you know, even all of that isn't enough sometimes. And it's not a stab against anybody that, you know, my loved ones that are listening to this, but it's common. Like you're not alone when this shit comes up, because even on my best day, I'm still in a way depressed. And I think if you take a look around society, and so I'll say this, like I went to a doctor, and I've been pretty open about this. I went to a doctor a few months ago to get my blood labs done, and I have an immune disorder, so it causes chronic fatigue, right? I'm always tired and shit, but my test level, I got my test checked because I was experiencing a lot of symptoms that would like lead people to believe I have low testosterone. So got my levels checked, my testosterone, my natural testosterone. I'd never taken any testosterone supplement, TRT, anything, was like around 650, which is really good for my age at the time. I think I was 30. It's a couple years ago. So I was like 30, 31. And the doctor's like, oh, you don't need testosterone. Yours is really good. And I'm like, man,
Like, whoa, fuck.
I was hoping that was it, right?
Yeah.
Well, I go back home, and my roommate at the time's like, dude, just try it anyway. If you're going to work out, just try this anyway. So I did, and I started feeling way better. So over the last couple of years, on and off, I have engaged in some usage of TRT because I believe that it's a natural substance. It can be abused, but I believe it's a natural substance that most men do not have as much access to now with all the plastic and estrogen production and all of our food, the poisons and stuff. You take a 50-year-old man from like the 1930s, his testosterone was like almost at 1,000. So I'm a healthy, younger male who is pretty athletic, and my testosterone's sitting at 600. Granted, that again is not bad, but I have friends that work out all the time, and they feel like shit. They go get tested, they're like 200. There's no reason for that. So anyway, because I've abused it in the past, I went to the doctor to see where I'm at, and the doctor's like, the doctor was going through my the questionnaire where they're like, do you have any thoughts of self-harm? It was a new doctor's thoughts of self-harm. And they also like were super, like, they asked me what gender I was. And I was like, I didn't want to get into the identity politics. I had a big beard at the time and shit. And like I get that they want to be respectful, but it just kind of, it made me angry. I was like, I'm not trying to be an old boomer. Like, what do you fucking think? But like, I was like, really? Like whatever, so I answered the question, and they're like, okay, what, were you born a male? And I said, yeah, I think so. And, so I'm going through all these questionnaires, whatever. So I'm already kind of aggravated. Again, I understand why they want to be respectful. There's a new school of thinking and people are changing all this shit, whatever. And then they get to the questionnaire where they ask if I'm depressed and all that. And of course I checked, yes, I'm depressed. And they were like, how often do you want to, and I answered it my own way, right? A to Z. The doctor comes in, and he asked me about my testosterone usage, and I told him, I've used it before. He goes, yeah, well, you're almost at 2,000. That's very, very dangerously high. I'm like, well, how's my cholesterol? He goes, well, your cholesterol is great. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not really worried about it then. He goes, what do you mean? I was like, well, that's the biggest, factor with high testosterone is you got to watch your cholesterol, your red blood cells, all that. And he goes, well, it's still not good for you. And I was like, all right, man, well, I can tone it back a little bit. And then he started talking to me about, I don't remember how we got to it, but we got to the depression part. And he goes, I see here that you're depressed. And I was like, well, there wasn't an option for disappointed. And he goes, what does that mean? And I was like, well, if you're an intelligent or even sentient being in today's day and age, and you walk around outside and you deal with people and you're not disappointed on a daily basis, then you have cognitive disabilities. Like, I don't know how else to put it, but of course I'm depressed, man. Like, my tax dollars kill kids, and I'm not allowed to do this or that. We're all living paycheck to paycheck. Like,
kill kids.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, and he was like, well, what about suicide? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you put it here that, you contemplate. And I said, well, yeah, more so out of boredom. He goes, what does that mean? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I get so bored sometimes I want to, I'm like, well, let's just, up the ante. And he did not think that was funny. And I was like, look, man, I'm not going to hurt myself. Like, I'm not going to hurt myself. Don't fucking write that down. And then this is 5 minutes after telling me that testosterone is dangerous. He starts talking to me about SSRIs and says that I could try a sample if I wanted to.
A salesman.
And I'm like, dude, this is my first visit with you, and you're going to bring up SSRIs. Now, I know people that it has helped. Sure. There's like this conversation could get me in a lot of trouble. So I'm just going to say, America's on drugs, and they're drugs that are changing how we think, how we feel, how we communicate, and how we disseminate information. And I think possibly some people are too quick to get on these things. And if they're not like drugs you can just get off of, SSRIs are not ones you can just I'm going to stop taking them. You get brain zaps. You get severe depression. You get hallucinations. You gain weight or you lose weight. You get weird headaches. You get tremors. It's crazy, dude. It's like coming off of heroin or something like that, and people are just like, yeah, prescribe, Zoloft or whatever. And all these people, like, I had somebody very close to me go on SSRIs and they were coming off and they were like, I'm having electrical shocks go through my body. And like, I was like, have you looked anything up? And like, well, I can't find a lot of stuff. I said, go on. It's going to sound funny, but go on Reddit. They're like, I don't like Reddit. I was like, okay. They're like, can you look it up for me? I said, sure.
People do SSRIs. They're experts.
Yeah. Well, Reddit has literally a subreddit with people's experiences on literally anything you could be into. Legos to nuclear physicism, like whatever. You know what I mean? Like they literally like A to Z, right? So I literally looked up the drug. It was Lexapro. And there's a whole subreddit called Lexapro, and it's a bunch of people talking about, hey, I took this much, I was feeling this, or hey, I came off. But almost every person who was coming off, there were hundreds of comments like, do not cold turkey. No one told me this would happen. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, you can't mix it with this. Oh, yeah, this happened to me. I'm dealing with this forever now and all this stuff. And I was like, and I sent this person the link and they were like, oh my God, my doctor didn't tell me any of this. And I was like, well, like, and it just sucks, man. Like the pharmaceutical companies are making hand over fist. They're making all kinds of money and people are just, and these are people that, we go back to the irresponsibility of society thing. They're told, oh, it's not your fault. I think way too many people are told they're autistic now. Let's just say that. Like, oh, I'm autistic, so sorry I'm being rude. I'm like, no, you're just a fucking dickhead, man.
You don't know how to talk to people.
Yeah, you're just socially inept. That doesn't mean you're autistic. I'm not saying people aren't autistic because just like the high estrogen rates in people, I think a lot of people are mentally ill in some ways now because of all the drugs in our food and plastics and things like that, for sure. But I think it's widely exaggerated.
Yeah.
People have always been freaks and losers and weirdos and always, fucking edgy. And, people have always been like that. There's nothing new under the sun. So whenever people are like, oh, I'm just autistic, I think it's a cop-out in a lot of ways. Now, I know some people who are really autistic, and when you meet them within 5 minutes, you're like, this guy's a little, something. But I think it's a Band-Aid that we throw, like everyone's like, oh, they're just autistic. And it's like, it's become a meme, with guns and shit. Like I'm really specific about things. Whenever I jokingly, I'm like, well, it's my autism. My girlfriend gets mad. And I'm like, what? She's like, you're not autistic. And I was like, okay. She's like, no, I'm so fucking sick of everyone saying that all the time. Because to be fair to her, everyone does. Everyone's like, oh, I'm sorry I called you a bunch of names and didn't text you back and I never showed up to work. I'm just autistic. Or people throwing fits and they're like, sorry, I was having a panic attack. I can't come in today. I had a panic attack. And it's like, I'm sorry to sound like a boomer again, but like the whole like, well, back in my day, if you call it out of work, you can't just be like, oh, sorry, having a bad brain day. It's not going to come into work. Yes, mental fatigue is a thing. And I understand that because I go through it all the time. I've definitely missed work because I was too mentally exhausted to deal with it. Everyone, I think, has. However, it goes to the irresponsible thing again with society, just like, oh, well, you don't have to deal with it. Take these drugs, numb yourself, watch some porn, like eat a carton of ice cream, we just, the age of instant gratification and excess. And I think that goes with leeway as well, is we have excess leeway to do a lot of stupid shit. Now, I'm not talking about with laws and stuff. I'm talking about with labor. A lot of people, boomers on Facebook, no one wants to work these days. Well, there is some merit to that statement. I've had to fire guys because they just didn't show up to work, and then no show, no call, anything. 2 days. They show up and they're like, "What do you mean I'm fired?" I'm like, "You didn't tell me you weren't coming in." "Oh, I just didn't feel good." "Okay, you have a doctor's note?" "No." "Why do I need? You don't believe me?" Shit like that. And it's like, bro, like, this is a grown up job. This isn't, not that not all jobs are grown up jobs, but in my opinion, they're not all grown up jobs. But we're cutting steel or whatever, and it's like, dude, you didn't show up because you were sick, but you didn't go to the doctor, you didn't get a doctor's note, you didn't call me, you didn't say anything. And a lot of people these days just expect, like my girlfriend, for example, she had somebody somewhere that she worked. I don't want to dox her, but somewhere that she worked, that she was managing, somebody just had a panic attack, so they just didn't they literally drove to work, had a panic attack, never came inside, texted their coworker that they had a panic attack, so they didn't want to come to work, and just left. And they thought that was an ample excuse. And it was like, what? Like, are you kidding me? So, like, we kind of like live in this weird, it's the, like, I don't know, man. It's exhausting.
No
Just like me
responsibility
talking
world.
for 2 hours.
No.
Exhausting.
I think we almost solved the world. I think we identified all the problems, so maybe
Yeah,
part three will come back and fix it all.
totally. Well, hopefully part 3 has the legendary Nathan that I've never.
I must. Yeah, he does exist. He's not just like an AI
Mhm.
cartoon.
He's not. He's not the R to the BR.
I do have a co-host. I don't just put on a weird Canadian accent and get racist about Indians.
I miss Phil. I haven't talked to him in a couple days. I mean, we talk all the time on Instagram and shit.
Yeah.
It would have been good to see him. He's
he,
dying in Ohio or whatever.
He really wanted to make it, and then plans. They had like a big fuck off storm north of us, all of Kentucky, and now it's.
I was gonna say, hopefully he's okay. I had a bunch of friends in the Midwest today posting like their tornado sirens and shit.
Yeah, it's
I was like,
it's
man,
pretty crazy here right now. There's like fucking thunder going off in the background. I don't know if the mic will pick it up, but we're meant to have some tornadoes touching down around us tonight. So,
yeah.
I'm nestled in the mountains, but like we have tornadoes touch down like just outside of our little bowl, so it gets interesting. Trees fall over. I miss sandstorms in Phoenix. Like that shit was manageable. Like I can do the desert thing. No like fucked up natural disasters out there. You just have to like not be outside at certain times, which I can do. Like this shit, your house,
dude.
Fuck away.
Yeah, well, it's like living in Florida with hurricanes. I used to go through like insane hurricanes, and I moved to Utah. What's funny is like my like third week here, there was like a category. Not category, what do they call it? Like a magnitude earthquake, like a 6 or something crazy. And it was they hadn't had one in fucking 10 years that bad. It was like my first week here, and I was like, oh, I don't have to worry about hurricanes anymore. And I'm on the top floor of my apartment building, and my building starts swaying. And it's first thing in the morning too. I'm getting ready for work. My mirror falls, hits me in the head. I have 2 dogs at the time. My ex-wife wasn't home, and she was at work or something. And it's pretty early in the morning, and I grab my dogs. I'm just laying on the floor, and I'm freaking out because I'd never been in an earthquake before. And I look out the window, and there's cars bouncing and shit. I was like, what the fuck? I thought, in the moment, I was like, this is the Armageddon. This is the end of the world. What is going on? Because I didn't even think about earthquakes. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the worst it gets in Utah. I mean, we do have some pretty crazy wind gusts, but it's not like where you're at or Florida or whatever. If there's tornadoes, they're very minimal. We do have long day. We do have like dust storms and stuff because we do have the desert, but or like blizzards and shit. But in society, in this day and age, I say society a lot, dude. I'm sorry. In this day and age, if you're living in like a communal area, it's really hard to die in a blizzard unless you're homeless, which sucks. I've seen it happen, but it's you got to be real stupid if you have a job and a roof over your head. Dying in a blizzard is just very silly. Now my parents, they used to live in Vermont, and like they would tell you in the winter, you better pack a bunch of shit in your car because you go off the road, you get stuck to be 4 days before anyone finds you. Now that's different though, because I live in the mountains here in at Salt Lake, but Vermont, the mountains it's just different. It's very different, So and I'm sure in a lot of Appalachia and shit in your general area, I'm sure you can probably get caught up. So
you can get fucked
hopefully
up. I don't expect it.
Yeah, hopefully Phil is okay out there when you're editing this later.
Yeah,
just know that I care.
Phil made it home good.
Yeah. Well, he can put a little disclaimer. I made it home, by the way, during this part. Cut his voice in just so he's here with us on the episode. I feel like he's here now in spirit.
Hi, I am Rishi, an Indian AI assistant. Phil did in fact make it home safely. India number 1, Pakistan 0.
Yeah. And hopefully wherever Nathan's at, hopefully he's
in the woods.
Decent
in the
woods.
He's up in Idaho, so he doesn't give a fuck about anything going on.
Oh yeah, Idaho doesn't really have much. Maybe earthquakes, but not a lot.
Yeah. He's like way closer to you than I am.
I know. Maybe me and him can have I can come on the show with him in person at some point. I don't know.
Oh, dude. We'll figure out some kind of in person that's what we should do for part 3.
In person, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I've already come to y'all's area. You got to come out here.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever been here before.
I actually haven't. The closest, the most I've been into Utah, even though I lived in Arizona for so long, was Four Corners. I put a step into Utah. I really wanted to see Utah, but just didn't have the time. I saw all of Arizona. I saw Colorado. Saw a shit ton of Vegas, but I never did the Utah thing. I never did Zion and all that.
So I'll say, man, they call it, Zion and all that for a reason. This place is it's got its problems, right? But man, this place is so beautiful. I walk outside sometimes. I'm like, do I live in fucking Skyrim? Because it looks, it's beautiful in a lot of places. Definitely, we got big patches of gray desert and our air quality is garbage. A couple times a year it's nice, but it's literally the worst in the world. Wow. Worse in China at a handful of times.
Because of dust.
So that's something to be said. So take it for what you will. But there are some absolutely beautiful spring and fall here are just, man, there's this place called Cottonwood. Dude, oh man, they have Oktoberfest and all these bars and stuff over in Cottonwood, and you feel like you want to slap on some lederhosen and just walk around and just, I mean, dude, I don't know. Okay, let's be real. I probably don't want to put on lederhosen, but you feel like you're in some Germanic town in maybe Switzerland or some shit. It's just beautiful, man. So yeah, if you get the chance, obviously I'll love to go up to Idaho and meet up with Nathan up there too. But if you guys get the chance to come to Salt Lake or just Utah in general,
I've got an idea if we can make it happen, but I'll bring it up off air. But no,
yeah. You don't want everybody to find out when we're meeting up and then come fucking wipe us out. Oh yeah, you think there's chaos? Here's chaos, dude. So
unfortunately, Nathan and one of our Irish co-hosts, Lucas, put out there into the world that if you kill one of the co-hosts, you take their spot. We do have PvP rules enabled, which is a poor decision because someone's going to John Lennon one of us, and then the rest of us are going to have to laugh at it. That's a personal problem. Well, anyway, it's been great rambling and solving the world with you. We pointed out a whole lot of dark shit, and I think it's always an interesting conversation to get into the less pretty stuff and kind of. While there's a lot of grim shit out there, I think that's the reality of life. I think processing is part of the human experience in the information age. And
if somebody has to hear me use the word irresponsible one more time, dude, they're probably gonna end it all, man. Man.
The last thing we have to do. Dad advice.
Oh, okay.
For the listeners.
Let's see. I think a big one that I've recently been trying to memorize, and a lot of this is going to be shit that you've already heard, listeners. So think before you speak. Know the entire situation before you react. And when I say think before you speak, I mean more so think before you react. And also know that just because you're thinking it doesn't mean somebody else knows it. That's another big one. I find myself thinking like, oh, dude, like so-and-so knows this or that. And a lot of people they don't think about you as nearly as much as you think about yourself. And I guess that's another thing to put out there that I struggle with is no one's fucking sitting around. I mean, maybe, right? There's a small chance, but no one's sitting around hating on you all day, obsessing with you. Yeah, maybe for a few minutes, right? But you think about yourself way more than anybody else does, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying you shouldn't think about yourself, but my point is that when you overanalyze and you fixate on you hate your face or you hate this about yourself or that, or you made this mistake, just remember the only reason why that shit is still living is because you're bringing it up yourself. You're digging up the corpse that should be buried. And I'm not saying you shouldn't reminisce on your mistakes and learn from them and stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying. But my point is like, don't fixate yourself to death because it's very easy to do. I do it all the time. I need to take my own dad advice. But that's what I'll leave you with today is think before you react. Don't fixate on yourself. Do not obsess over yourself. And I'm not saying we're not talking about like with apathy and shit. I'm talking about I cannot believe in 7th grade I did this. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So just do with that with what you will. If you listen, great. If not, I'll go fuck myself. Doesn't matter. But that's my kind of rough dad advice for today. Don't run with scissors pointing at yourself. That's a good one. So
yourself and don't run with scissors. Hell yeah.
Yeah, don't run with scissors. So but yeah, and don't eat weird. Don't touch stuff you don't know what it is. That's another really good one. It's amazing to me how much shit I see in people's hands. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, I don't know. It's just don't do it. It's in nature and in machine shops. 2 places, don't touch things you don't know what they are because it could end badly. So I don't know what's all over my hands. It's starting to sting a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, BR, I had a great time talking to you. Thanks for letting me come on here and be a little schizophrenic and rambling or whatever
that's what
for 2 hours.
No, we appreciate
it. But yeah, man. And if you sat through this and listened to me, thank you. Hopefully I'll be on a 3rd time eventually at some point. Absolutely. With these guys. Who knows, we might make a video and you never know. So, and also be on the lookout. And this is not a promise, but I'm going to try to roll one of these out myself. Hopefully we can discuss, battle formations from Ashencourt or, whatever. I'm really into medieval stuff. So I really would like to roll something out. So just be on the lookout. If you follow my page, I know I say this shit all the time, be on the lookout for this. And I was supposed to do a short film and all this shit. And like a lot of it gets blown up. Some of it happens. Some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
This is something I want to do. We'll see, so yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have all your stuff in the description. So if you're coming to this and you don't already follow Jay, go check that out. But otherwise, yeah. Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. Good time as always, and we'll do something again with the boys actually in tow instead of fucking leaving me high and dry.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, much love, man, and thank you all for listening. And until next time, goodbye.